Why the gloves, Gideon? Nora's voice, soft and feigned with innocence, masked her racing pulse as she leaned against the Camden kitchen counter, her black hair with curled ends swaying. Her hazel eyes studied her husband, his smile too polished, hiding a chilling secret. Every morning, Gideon pressed healthy lemon water into her hands, a ritual she trusted until she caught him, gloved hands vatting lemons, a betrayal slipping through his fingers. Nora, a brilliant botanist, wasn't just fighting for her survival, but for communities craving her healing herbs. His poison sparked a fire she'd wield to shatter his lies. This isn't just a tale of deceit. It's a war for truth that forged a wife into a warrior. Subscribe to catch every twist and share where and when you're listening. Her triumph will leave you stunned, her legacy blazing. You're too fragile for this, Nora. Step back before you embarrass us both. Gideon's voice sliced through the chatter at the Camden Community potluck, his polished smile a blade aimed at Nora's chest. The crowd, neighbors, local business owners, froze, their plastic cups of punch hovering mid-sip. Nora, 35, her black hair cascading in soft waves with curled ends, stood rigid, her fingers tightening around a plate of her homemade herbal scones. Her jaw clenched, teeth grinding until pain shot through her temples. Gideon's words weren't just a jab. They were a calculated strike, painting her as weak, incompetent, a dreamer unfit to run her small herbal shop. She opened her mouth to retort, her hazel eyes blazing, but Gideon cut her off, his hand slashing the air. "Don't, Nora. You're not cut out for this." His tone dripped with condescension, each syllable a hammer driving the crowd's pity deeper into her skin. Her pulse hammered, her nails digging into her palms until blood prickled. Around them, faces turned. Mrs. Delaney, the librarian with her pursed lips, Mr. Carver, the hardware store owner, with a raised brow. They swallowed Gideon's narrative whole, their whispers buzzing like hornets. "Poor thing," one muttered. "She's in over her head," another hissed. Nora's chest burned, her breath shallow as she fought the urge to scream. She'd spent years building her shop, pouring her soul into rare herbs that could heal communities. Her research a lifeline for people like Elise, a single mom in the crowd clutching a sick kid. Yet here was Gideon, her husband of 3 years, shredding her reputation in front of Camden's heart. His tailored jacket gleamed under the string lights, his charm a mask that fooled everyone but her. She'd seen the cracks, his late-night calls, his dismissive sneers when she talked about her work. But this was a war declared in public. Her fingers trembled, the plate wobbling. She wanted to hurl it at him, watch the scones splatter across his smug face. Instead, she forced her lips into a tight smile, her teeth still grinding. "I'm fine, Gideon," she said, her voice low, a blade wrapped in silk. He smirked, thinking he'd won, and turned to charm Mrs. Delaney with a laugh. Nora's heart pounded, each beat a war drum. She wasn't fragile. She was a scientist, a fighter, her mind already racing to unravel his game. Earlier that morning, Gideon had handed her a glass of lemon water, his daily ritual, insisting it was for her health. "Drink up, love. You look pale," he'd said, his eyes glinting with something she couldn't place. She'd sipped it, the tartness sharp on her tongue. But now, standing here, her head swam, her limbs heavy. Was it exhaustion from late nights in her shop, or something else? Her gaze flicked to Gideon, now laughing with the crowd, his hand resting on a neighbor's shoulder. Her stomach twisted, a primal alarm ringing in her skull. She set the plate down, her movements deliberate, her black hair swaying as she straightened. The crowd's eyes lingered, their pity a weight she refused to carry. She wasn't the weak wife Gideon painted. Her research, her shop, her purpose, they were hers, and she'd be damned if he stole them. As she turned to leave, her foot brushed something on the grass. A small folded note dropped from Gideon's pocket. She scooped it up, her pulse spiking, and tucked it into her sleeve. It was a crack in his armor, a whisper of secrets she'd tear open. The potluck's laughter faded behind her, but her resolve burned brighter, a spark ready to ignite. "You don't get to break me, Gideon." Nora's voice was a low growl, slicing through the hum of the Camden potluck as she stormed away from the crowd. Her black hair, straight and shoulder-length with curled ends, whipped against her cheek, her hazel eyes blazing with fury. Her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached, each grind a pulse of defiance against Gideon's public attack. He'd called her fragile, a dreamer unfit for her own shop, his words a calculated blade to carve away her credibility. The neighbors' pitying stares burned her skin, but she refused to buckle. Her nails dug into her palms, blood prickling as she gripped the folded note she'd swiped from the grass. Gideon's careless drop, now her weapon. She pushed through the crowd, her steps deliberate, ignoring Mrs. Delaney's whispered, "Oh, Nora, take care." Her heart thundered, each beat a hammer striking steel. Gideon's voice echoed in her skull. "You're not cut out for this." But she wasn't his puppet. She was Nora Whitaker, 35, a botanist who'd spent years coaxing life from rare herbs, building a shop that healed people like Elise's sick kid. She wouldn't let him paint her as weak. Her fingers brushed the note in her sleeve, its edges sharp against her wrist, a promise of secrets she'd unravel. Nora reached the edge of the potluck, the string lights fading behind her. She stopped by a wooden bench, her breath ragged, her head spinning. Was it the lemon water Gideon insisted she drink that morning? The tart sting lingered on her tongue, and her limbs felt heavier than they should. She sat, her posture rigid, refusing to collapse. Her fingers unfolded the note, her pulse spiking. Scrawled in Gideon's sharp handwriting, "VitaCore meeting, 8 p.m., confirmed dosage." Her stomach twisted, a cold fist of dread. Dosage? Was this about her? Her teeth ground harder, pain shooting through her jaw as she shoved the note back into her sleeve. She wanted to march back, shove the note in Gideon's smug face, and demand answers. But no, she'd play smarter. Her scientist mind kicked into gear, mapping his lies. Gideon's charm had fooled Camden, but not her. Not anymore. She remembered his eyes that morning, glinting as he handed her the glass. "For your health, love," he'd said, his smile too perfect. Her chest burned, fury swallowing the hurt. She wasn't fragile, she was fire, and he'd feel the flames. A shadow loomed, Gideon, his tailored jacket catching the light as he approached. "Nora, you're upset," he said, his voice smooth, a snake's hiss. She stood, her knees steady despite the dizziness, her hair swaying as she faced him. "Upset?" she snapped, her words a whip. "You humiliated me." He raised a hand, cutting her off. "You're overreacting. Go home. Rest." His tone was patronizing, his eyes scanning her for weakness. She wanted to scream, but instead, her lips curled into a thin smile, her voice ice. "I'm not your project, Gideon. I'm my own." His smirk faltered, a crack in his mask. She turned, her steps sharp, leaving him standing alone. Her heart pounded, each beat forging her resolve. The note in her sleeve was her first clue, a spark to ignite his downfall. She wouldn't confront him yet. She'd wait, watch, let him think he'd won. As she walked into the dusk, Camden's quiet streets stretching before her, a faint chemical taste lingered in her throat. Her fingers tightened around the note, her mind racing. Whatever Gideon was hiding, she'd tear it open, piece by piece. The air grew colder, but her resolve burned hotter, a beacon whispering of the fight to come. "You're slipping, Nora, and it's painful to watch." Gideon's voice hissed through the quiet of their Camden kitchen, his eyes narrowing as he leaned against the counter, a lemon rolling under his fingers. Nora, her black hair with curled ends catching the morning light, stood frozen, her pulse hammering, her jaw clenched, teeth grinding until pain seared her temples. She'd come home from the potluck last night, Gideon's public attack, too fragile, still burning in her chest. The note she'd swiped, scrawled with VitaCore meeting, 8 p.m. confirmed dosage, was tucked in her pocket, its edges biting her skin. She hadn't slept, her mind racing, piecing together his lies. Now Gideon handed her another glass of lemon water, his daily ritual, his smile too sharp. "Drink, love. You look drained," he said, his tone syrupy but laced with venom. Her fingers curled around the glass, the tart scent stinging her nose. Her head spun, her limbs heavy, just like yesterday. She lifted the glass, her hazel eyes locked on his, searching for the man who'd once toasted her late-night breakthroughs with cheap wine. That man was gone, replaced by this stranger whose every word was a calculated strike. "I'm fine," she snapped, her voice ablade. But he cut her off, his hand waving dismissively. "Don't lie to yourself, Nora. You're unraveling." Her nails dug into her palms, blood prickling as she set the glass down. Untouched. She wouldn't drink his poison. Not today. Her gaze flicked to the counter, where Gideon's knife gleamed beside a pair of rubber gloves, discarded carelessly. Her heart lurched. Gloves. Last night's memory flashed. Gideon vatting lemons, gloved hands moving with precision. She stepped closer, her hair swaying, and asked, her voice deceptively soft, "Why the gloves, Gideon? Afraid of a little lemon juice?" His smirk faltered, his fingers twitching toward the gloves. "Just hygiene," he barked, his eyes darting to her untouched glass. "Stop overthinking." But Nora saw it, a bead of sweat on his brow, a crack in his polished mask. Her teeth ground harder, her resolve steel. She sat on the sofa, her movements slow, deliberate, her hand brushing her pocket where the note hid. "I'm just tired," she murmured, her head tilting, one hand rising to her forehead as if dizzy. Her other hand slipped into her jacket, fingers finding the tiny recorder she'd tucked there last night. Click. It was on, silent, waiting. Gideon's eyes softened, thinking her weak, but his jaw tightened, a flicker of unease. He'd underestimated her, and it gnawed at him. He turned away, his polished shoes clicking on the hardwood, but his hand lingered on the counter, brushing the gloves. Nora's pulse spiked. She'd seen that hesitation before, at the potluck, when he dropped the note. Her scientist mind churned, mapping his tells. The note's words, "confirmed dosage," echoed a chilling clue. Was he drugging her? Her dizziness, her fatigue. It wasn't exhaustion. Her fingers tightened around the recorder, her breath steady despite the fog in her head. She wouldn't collapse. Not now. Gideon glanced back, his eyes scanning her slumped form. "Rest, Nora," he said, his voice smooth but strained. "I'll handle everything." Her lips curled, a silent snarl hidden behind her hand. He thought he'd caged her, but she was awake, her mind a furnace burning through his lies. The recorder hummed softly, catching his every word. As he grabbed his jacket and headed for the door, a small vial, unlabeled, glinting faintly, slipped from his pocket, clinking onto the floor. He didn't notice, but Nora's eyes locked on it, her heart a war drum. She'd have her proof, and he'd pay. The vial lay there, a ticking bomb, whispering of secrets she'd pry open with her bare hands. "You think you can outsmart me, Nora? You're nothing without my guidance." Gideon's voice cut like a razor as he stormed into Nora's herbal shop in Camden, his polished shoes slamming the hardwood floor. Nora, 35, her black hair with curled ends swaying as she stood behind the counter, froze, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. Her hazel eyes blazed, locking on to Gideon's, his tailored jacket a stark contrast to the fury in his gaze. The note she'd swiped at the potluck, "VitaCore meeting, 8 p.m., confirmed dosage," burned in her pocket alongside the memory of the unlabeled vial that had fallen from his jacket yesterday. Her pulse hammered, each beat a war drum stoking her defiance. Gideon's public attack at the potluck, calling her fragile, had been a calculated move to cage her, but her catching him with gloves, vatting lemons, and her recorder catching his lies had cracked his facade. She gripped a jar of dried sage, her nails digging into her palms, blood prickling. "Guidance?" she snapped, her voice a whip. "You mean control?" Gideon stepped closer, his hand slashing the air, cutting her off. "Don't twist my word," he barked, his eyes scanning her for weakness. "You're falling apart, Nora. Everyone sees it." Her chest burned, fury swallowing the sting of his words. She'd felt the dizziness again this morning, the lemon water he'd pressed into her hands tasting sharper than usual. The vial now hidden in her shop's back room was her proof. Something was wrong, but she wouldn't show her hand. Not yet. Gideon paced, his movements predatory, his gaze darting to the shelves of herbs. "I came to apologize," he said, his tone softening, a snake's hiss. "The potluck, I went too far." His words were honey, but his eyes were cold, probing. Nora's teeth ground harder, pain anchoring her. She knew this game. His fake remorse was a trap to keep her docile. Her fingers brushed the recorder in her pocket, still warm from yesterday's capture of his lie about the gloves. "Apologize?" she said, her voice ice, her hair swaying as she leaned forward. "You humiliated me, Gideon." "Why?" He cut her off again, his hand slamming the counter. "You're paranoid," he snarled, his composure cracking. "I'm trying to help you." Her heart thundered, but she forced her shoulders to slump, her face softening into the fragile mask he expected. "Maybe you're right," she murmured, her eyes dropping, a calculated act. His smirk returned, thinking he'd won, but his fingers twitched, betraying unease. He was rattled. Her question about the gloves yesterday, her untouched lemon water this morning. She was slipping from his grasp, and he knew it. Nora turned, pretending to adjust a jar, her mind racing. The note's words, "confirmed dosage," echoed, tying to the vial she'd hidden. She needed to know what VitaCore was, why Gideon was meeting them. Her shop, her herbs, her life's work. They were at stake. Gideon's eyes followed her, his jaw tightening as he spotted her notebook on the counter, its pages filled with her research on rare herbs. He reached for it, his fingers grazing the leather cover. "What's this?" he demanded, his voice sharp. Nora spun, her hand snatching the notebook away, her hair whipping across her face. "My work!" she hissed, her words ablade. "Not yours." His eyes narrowed, a bead of sweat on his brow. He was scared. She'd seen too much. He backed off, his charm snapping back into place. "Rest, Nora," he said, his voice smooth but strained. "I'll check on you later." He turned, his shoes clicking as he left. But a folded business card slipped from his pocket, landing on the floor. Nora's pulse spiked. She scooped it up, her fingers trembling as she read, "VitaCore Pharmaceuticals, Celeste Marrow, CEO." Her breath caught, her scientist's mind locking onto the name. Gideon was hunting her, but she was hunting him back. The card burned in her hand, a new clue to his betrayal, whispering of a fight she was ready to ignite. "You can't cage me, Gideon, not when I'm saving lives." Nora's voice was a quiet snarl, her black hair with curled ends brushing her shoulders as she stood in her Camden herbal shop, surrounded by women clutching jars of her healing teas. Her jaw clenched, teeth grinding until pain anchored her fury. Gideon's visit an hour ago, his fake apology, his grab for her notebook, still burned in her chest. The VitaCore business card, now tucked in her pocket beside the note and the vial, was a blade she'd wield against him. Her hazel eyes blazed, her pulse hammering as she handed a jar to Elise, a single mom whose kid needed her herbs to breathe easier. This was her world, her strength, not Gideon's to steal. Nora moved among the women, her hair swaying, her voice steady but fierce. "This chamomile blend calms fevers," she said, guiding Elise's trembling hands. "Your boy will sleep tonight." Elise's eyes brimmed, her nod a spark that fueled Nora's resolve. She wasn't the fragile wife Gideon painted at the potluck. She was a botanist, 35, her shop a sanctuary where her research on rare herbs gave hope to people like Elise. Her fingers brushed the vial in her pocket, its cold glass a reminder of Gideon's betrayal. The lemon water, the gloves, the note about dosage. Her teeth ground harder, pain sharpening her focus. She stepped to a workbench, her hands steady as she ground dried herbs, her scientist's mind racing. The vial's contents. She'd test them tonight, confirm her suspicion of poison. Gideon thought he'd caged her, but she was awake, her defiance a furnace. A young woman, Mara, approached, clutching a notebook. "Can you teach me?" she asked, her voice timid but eager. Nora's chest tightened, pride surging. She saw herself in Mara, hungry to create, before Gideon's lies dulled her edges. "Start with this," Nora said, sliding a pestle into Mara's hand, her words a vow. "Never let anyone silence your fire." Mara's nod was fierce, her hands moving with purpose. Nora's gaze flicked to her own notebook, hidden behind a shelf, its pages filled with suspicions. The lemon water's chemical tang, Gideon's gloves, the VitaCore card. Her heart thundered, each beat forging her plan. She'd called Lila Voss, her dermatologist friend, to analyze the vial. Lila's voice had been sharp. Bring it now! Nora's fingers curled into fists, her nails digging into her palms, blood prickling. She wouldn't let Gideon win. Not her shop, not her work, not her soul. Elise touched her arm, her voice soft. You're a lifeline, Nora. The words hit like a spark, igniting Nora's purpose. She wasn't just fighting for herself, but for these women, this town. Gideon's voice echoed. You're unraveling. But her mind was steel, piecing together his lies. As the women left, Nora locked the shop, her hair catching the fading light. She pulled the VitaCore card from her pocket, its edges sharp against her skin. Celeste Marrow, CEO. The name was a clue, a door to Gideon's secrets. Her breath steadied, her resolve iron. She'd meet Lila tonight, and they'd crack the vial open. The shop's shelves loomed, jars glinting like an army, whispering of the battle she'd wage. You're a burden, Nora, dragging us both down. Gideon's voice was a venomous slash as he barged into her Camden herbal shop, his eyes glinting like sharpened steel. Nora, 35, her black hair with curled ends swaying, stood behind the counter, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. Her pulse thundered, each beat a hammer forging her fury. The VitaCore business card, the note about dosage, and the unlabeled vial burned in her pocket. Clues to Gideon's betrayal. His lemon water, his gloves, his lies. Her hazel eyes locked onto his, her fingers gripping a mortar, nails digging into her palms until blood prickled. His potluck attack, his fake apology yesterday, and now this, every word a blade to cage her. I'm not your burden, she snapped, her voice a whip, her hair flicking as she leaned forward. What's your game, Gideon? He cut her off, his hand slamming the counter, the sound a gunshot. Game? You're delusional, he hissed, his charm cracking, his jaw twitching. I'm here to fix this. Let's take a break. Somewhere quiet, just us. His tone softened, a snake's hiss, but his eyes were cold, scanning her for cracks. Nora's chest burned, her scientist mind racing. He wanted her isolated, docile, but she saw his fear, a bead of sweat, a glance at her notebook on the shelf. She stepped closer, her movements deliberate, her fingers brushing the recorder in her pocket. Click. It was on, humming silently. Fix what? She asked, her voice ice, her hair swaying as she tilted her head. My shop? My life? Gideon's hand slashed the air, cutting her off. You're falling apart, he barked. I'm trying to save you. Her teeth ground harder, pain anchoring her. Save her? He was poisoning her. She was sure now. The dizziness, the fatigue, the chemical tang in his lemon water. She slumped against the counter, her hand rising to her forehead, a calculated act of fragility. Maybe you're right, she murmured, her eyes dropping, the recorder catching every word. Gideon's smirk returned, his shoulders relaxing, thinking he'd won. Good girl, he said, his voice syrupy. Pack a bag, we'll leave tomorrow. Nora's heart pounded, fury surging behind her mask. She nodded, her lips pressed thin, but her mind was a furnace, burning through his lies. She'd meet Lila tonight, test the vial, and confirm the poison. As Gideon turned to leave, his foot kicked a crumpled paper under the counter, a receipt scrawled with VitaCore Celeste, 10K deposit. Nora's breath caught, her fingers trembling as she scooped it up, hiding it in her sleeve. Her pulse spiked, the receipt a new crack in Gideon's armor. Gideon, she called, her voice soft, testing. He spun, his eyes narrowing. What? He snapped. She held his gaze, her hair catching the light, her words sharp. Why VitaCore? What do they want with me? His face twitched, a flicker of panic. You're imagining things, he barked, cutting her off, his hand gripping the doorframe. Rest, Nora. Let me handle it. He stormed out, his shoes clicking, but his haste betrayed him. Nora's nails dug deeper, blood welling. He was scared. She'd hit a nerve. She locked the door, her hands steady despite the dizziness creeping in. The receipt, the card, the vial, they were pieces of a puzzle, and VitaCore was the key. Lila's text buzzed. Lab's ready. Bring the vial. Nora's resolve hardened, her scientist mind plotting each step. She wouldn't run with Gideon. She'd stay, fight, tear his lies apart. The receipt burned in her hand, its scrawled numbers a whisper of greed, a promise of secrets she'd rip open under the cold light of truth. "You're a dreamer, Nora, and dreamers get crushed." Celeste Merrow's voice was a cold blade, slicing through the air of Nora's Camden herbal shop. Nora, 35, her black hair with curled ends swaying, stood rigid behind the counter, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. Her hazel eyes locked onto Celeste, a sleek woman in a tailored blazer, her smile venomous. Nora's pulse hammered, each beat a war drum. The VitaCore receipt, Celeste, 10K deposit, burned in her pocket beside the note, the vial, and the recorder's damning capture of Gideon's lies. Gideon's attack at the potluck, his fake apology yesterday, and now this stranger, VitaCore's CEO, striding in like she owned Nora's world. Nora gripped a jar of lavender, her nails digging into her palms, blood prickling. "Crushed?" she snapped, her voice a whip. "This is my shop. Get out." Celeste laughed, a sharp, mocking sound, her hand slashing the air to cut Nora off. "Don't play tough," she hissed, stepping closer, her perfume sharp as acid. "Your herbs, your little experiments, they're nothing without my backing." Her eyes glinted, predatory, scanning Nora's shelves like a hawk. Nora's chest burned, fury surging. This wasn't just about Gideon's poison, the lemon water, the gloves. Celeste was the puppet master, and Nora's research was the prize. "You're with Gideon," Nora said, her words ice, her hair flicking as she leaned forward. "What's VitaCore want with me?" Celeste's smile tightened, her hand waving dismissively. "You're in over your head," she barked, cutting Nora off. "Sell your research, or you'll lose everything." Her threat landed like a fist, but Nora's resolve hardened, her scientist's mind racing. The receipt tied Celeste to Gideon's dosage plan, the vial a ticking bomb of proof. She wouldn't buckle, not for this woman, not for anyone. Celeste paced, her heels clicking like a countdown, her gaze locking onto Nora's notebook, half hidden behind a shelf. "Hand it over," she demanded, her voice a snarl. "Your formulas belong to us." Nora's heart thundered, her fingers brushing the recorder in her pocket, still warm from capturing Gideon's lies. "My work stays mine," she shot back, her voice a blade. Celeste's eyes narrowed, a flicker of doubt cracking her composure. "Keep pushing, Nora," she hissed, "and you'll regret it." She turned, her blazer swishing, but her hand brushed a shelf, knocking a small USB drive to the floor. Nora's breath caught, her pulse spiking as Celeste strode out, oblivious to her mistake. Nora dove for the drive, her fingers trembling as she snatched it up, her hair falling across her face. Her teeth ground harder, pain anchoring her. Celeste wasn't just Gideon's ally. She was the architect of a bigger scheme, and this drive was a new clue. Nora's mind churned, mapping the connections. Gideon's poison, VitaCore's greed, her shop's survival. Lila's text buzzed. "Vial's poison. Meet me now." Nora's resolve was iron, her scientist's heart blazing. She'd crack Celeste's game wide open. The USB drive burned in her hand, its sleek surface a whisper of secrets, a spark ready to ignite her fight. "You're a fool, Nora, thinking you can outrun my reach." Celeste's venomous hiss echoed in Nora's mind as she hunched over a cluttered table in Lila's Camden pharmacy lab, her black hair with curled ends spilling across her shoulders. Her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached, pain anchoring her fury. Her hazel eyes burned, locked on the USB drive she'd snatched from the floor after Celeste's visit to her shop an hour ago. Nora's pulse thundered, each beat a war drum. The VitaCore receipt, the note about dosage, the vial of poison, and now this drive. They were pieces of a puzzle, and Celeste, VitaCore's CEO, was the architect of Gideon's betrayal. Nora's nails dug into her palms, blood prickling as she gripped the drive, her scientist's mind racing to crack it open. Lila Voss, her dermatologist friend, leaned over a microscope, her hands steady as she analyzed the vial's contents. "It's a neurotoxin," Lila snapped, her voice a blade, cutting through the lab's hum. "Slow acting, meant to fog your brain, make you look unhinged." Nora's chest burned, fury surging. Gideon's lemon water, his gloves, his lies about her fragility at the potluck. It was all a setup to steal her herbal research. She slammed her fist on the table, the drive rattling. "He's destroying me," she growled, her hair flicking as she stood. Lila's eyes flicked to her, sharp. "Not if we destroy him first." Nora plugged the USB into Lila's laptop, her fingers trembling, but precise. The screen flickered, files loading, emails, spreadsheets, a video. Her heart lurched as she clicked an email from Celeste to Gideon, dated last week. "Increase the dose. She's still too sharp," it read. Nora's teeth ground harder, pain shooting through her jaw. Another email detailed Vitacor's plan. Buy Nora's rare herb formula, a cure for chronic pain, and bury it to protect their synthetic drugs. Her shop, her life's work, was their target. "They're killing people," Nora hissed, her voice a whip. Lila nodded, her hands flying across the keyboard. "Keep digging," she barked, cutting off Nora's next thought. Theo Crane, the investigator Lila had called, burst through the door, his hawk-like eyes scanning the room. "What have you got?" he demanded, his voice gravelly. Nora shoved the laptop toward him, her hair swaying. "Proof," she said, her words ice. Theo's eyes narrowed, skimming the emails. "Vitacor's done this before," he growled. "Buried green cures, lined their pockets." Nora's pulse spiked, her mind churning. The recorder in her pocket, still warm from capturing Gideon's lies, held his voice admitting the hygiene excuse for the gloves. She played it for Theo, her hands steady despite the rage boiling inside. Gideon's voice filled the room, smooth but strained. "Just hygiene, Nora. Stop overthinking." Theo's pen flew across his notebook, his nod curt. "We need more," he said, his voice a blade. "Emails aren't enough." Nora's fingers tightened on the USB, her scientist's mind mapping the next move. She clicked the video file, her breath catching. The screen showed Gideon in their kitchen, gloved hands vatting lemons, a syringe dripping a clear liquid into her glass. Her stomach twisted, a cold fist of dread. "He taped it," she snarled, her voice low, cutting. Lila's eyes widened, her hand gripping Nora's arm. "That's your silver bullet." But Nora wasn't done. She searched Gideon's office last night after his fake apology and found a locked drawer. The receipt, Celeste, 10K deposit, hinted at a paper trail. "His office," she said, her words sharp. "There's more." Theo's eyes blazed, his hands slashing the air to cut her off. "Too risky," he barked. "They're watching you." Nora's teeth ground, her resolve iron. "I'm not hiding," she shot back, her hair flicking as she stood. Lila's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Back off, or you're done." Nora's heart thundered, but her eyes stayed locked on the screen, the video looping Gideon's betrayal. She grabbed a sample of her hair from her purse, her hands trembling with purpose. "Test this," she told Lila, her voice a vow. "Prove the poison's in me." Lila nodded, her hands already moving. Theo's pen paused, his gaze softening with respect. "You're playing with fire," he said, his voice low. Nora's lips curled, a silent snarl. "Let it burn." She'd break into Gideon's office tonight, find the drawer's contents. The USB drive, the recorder, the vial. They were her arsenal, but she needed more to bury Vitacor. As Lila prepped the hair sample, Nora's fingers brushed the receipt, its scrawled numbers a whisper of greed, a ticking bomb ready to explode their lies. "You're a liability, Nora, and liabilities get erased." Celeste's voice, cold and sharp, crackled through the video on Lila's laptop, her words a blade slicing through Nora's chest. Nora, 35, her black hair with curled ends falling across her face, stood in Lila's Camden pharmacy lab, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. Her hazel eyes burned, locked on the screen, her pulse hammering like a war drum. The USB drive snatched from Celeste's careless drop had already revealed Gideon's poisoning, gloved hands, a syringe in her lemon water. Now this video, a meeting between Celeste and Gideon, exposed the heart of their betrayal. Her nails dug into her palms, blood prickling, fury surging. "They're not just after my shop," Nora hissed, her voice a whip, her hair flicking as she leaned closer. Lila, her dermatologist ally, gripped the table, her eyes wide. "Keep watching," she barked, cutting Nora off. The video showed Celeste, Vitacor's CEO, leaning across a desk, her smile venomous. "Her herb formula threatens our patents," she said. "Bury it, Gideon. Declare her incompetent, and it's ours." Gideon's nod was cold, his voice precise. "She's fading. The neurotoxin's working." Nora's stomach twisted, a cold fist of dread. Her dizziness, her fatigue. It was their plan to steal her research, a cure for chronic pain, and lock it away to protect Vitacor's profits. Nora's teeth ground harder, pain anchoring her. "They're killing communities," she snarled, her scientist mind racing. Her formula could save towns like Elise's, choked by illness. But Vitacor had buried others like it. Green cures, silence for greed. Theo, the investigator, slammed his fist on the table, his hawk-like eyes blazing. "They've done this before," he growled, cutting her off. "3 other researchers, same playbook, discredited, erased." Nora's heart thundered, her fingers clutching the recorder in her pocket, still holding Gideon's lies about the gloves. The receipt, Celeste, 10K deposit, and the vial were her weapons, but this video was a bombshell. "They thought I'd break," Nora said, her voice ice, her hair swaying as she stood. Lila's hand gripped her arm, fierce. "You're their nightmare." Theo's pen flew, his voice sharp. "We need the contract from Gideon's office," he barked, cutting off her next thought. Nora's resolve hardened, her mind mapping the break-in. Vitacor wasn't just stealing her work. They were crushing lives for profit. Her thoughts flashed to Mara, the young woman in her shop, her dreams tied to Nora's herbs. She wouldn't let them win. As the video looped, Celeste's cold laugh, Nora's fingers tightened on the USB, its weight a vow. She'd raid Gideon's office tonight, find the contract, and bury them. A text buzzed. "Unknown number. You're next." Her pulse spiked, but her eyes stayed locked on the screen, Celeste's smirk a taunt. Nora's lips curled, a silent snarl. She'd turned their game against them. The USB burned in her hand, a spark ready to ignite a reckoning. "You're done, Nora. Weaklings like you don't survive this game." Celeste Merrow's voice was a venomous slash as she loomed in the shadowed corner of Camden's community hall, her tailored blazer glinting like armor. Nora, 35, her black hair with curled ends swaying, stood rigid on the edge of the herbal conference stage, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. Her hazel eyes blazed, locked on Celeste. Vitacor's CEO, who schemed to steal Nora's research, was laid bare on the USB drive. Emails, a video of Gideon poisoning her lemon water, proof of their greed. Her pulse thundered, each beat a war drum. The recorder, the vial, the receipt, and now the USB were her arsenal. But Celeste's presence, flanked by 2 hired thugs, was a blade at her throat. Nora gripped her notebook, its pages filled with her herb formula, her nails digging into her palms, blood prickling. "Weak?" she snapped, her voice a whip, her hair flicking as she stepped forward. "You're the one hiding behind goons." Celeste laughed, sharp and cold, her hands slashing the air to cut Nora off. "Don't waste my time," she hissed, her eyes glinting like a predator's. "Hand over the formula, or you're finished." The thugs advanced, their fists curled, one with a faint chemical scent on his jacket. Nora's scientist mind caught it, the same neurotoxin from her vial. Her chest burned, fury surging. This wasn't just about her shop, it was about towns like Elise's, choking on illness Vitacor ignored. "You'll never touch my work," Nora growled, her words ice. Celeste's smile tightened, her hand waving to the thugs. "Grab her," she barked, cutting off Nora's next breath. A thug lunged, his grip iron on Nora's arm, twisting until her shoulder screamed. She yanked free, her hair whipping across her face, and dodged behind a table stacked with her herbal displays. "Back off!" she shouted, her voice a blade, snatching a vial of her pepper-based spray from her pocket. She sprayed it, the thug howling, clutching his eyes. Celeste's eyes narrowed, her composure cracking. "Stupid move," she snarled, cutting Nora off as the second thug charged. Nora ducked, her heart hammering, her scientist's precision guiding her. She grabbed a metal tray, swinging it hard, connecting with the thug's jaw. He stumbled, grunting, But Celeste's heels clicked closer, her voice a hiss. "You're out of your depth," she spat, her hands slashing to signal the first thug, now recovered. Nora's pulse spiked, her teeth grinding harder, pain anchoring her. She bolted toward a side exit, her hair swaying, but the thug's hand grazed her shoulder, yanking her back. She twisted, her elbow slamming into his chest, her breath ragged. "You can't stop me," she snarled, her eyes blazing, kicking a chair into his path. Celeste's laugh was a knife, her words sharp. "You're already dead," she barked, cutting off Nora's retort. The hall's shadows loomed. The conference crowds chattered distant. Nora's mind raced, flashing to Mara's hopeful eyes. Elise's sick kid. Her fight was for them. The USB in her pocket, the recorder's weight were her lifelines. She needed to survive, get to Lila and Theo, and expose Vidacor. The thug lunged again, but Nora dove behind a curtain, her fingers trembling as she gripped the spray. Celeste's voice echoed, a cold command. "Finish her!" Nora's resolve was iron, her heart a furnace. The curtain swayed, a whisper of danger closing in, a spark ready to ignite her escape. "You're a ghost, Nora, fading fast." Celeste's venomous snarl echoed in Nora's ears as she sprinted through Camden's darkened streets, her black hair with curled ends whipping against her face. Her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached, pain anchoring her fury. Her pulse thundered, each beat a war drum as she dodged shadows after escaping Celeste's thugs at the herbal conference. The USB drive, recorder, and vial burned in her pocket, proof of Gideon's poisoning and Vidacor's greed, but she needed more to bury them. Her hazel eyes scanned the night, her breath ragged, her shoulders screaming from the thug's grip. Her scientist's mind raced, locked on Gideon's office, where a locked drawer held the contract tying him to Celeste. Nora's nails dug into her palms, blood prickling as she reached the glass facade of Gideon's law firm. Lila's car screeched to a stop, her Dharmacist friend's face sharp behind the wheel. Theo Crane, the investigator, leaned out, his hawk-like eyes blazing. "Move!" Lila barked, cutting off Nora's gasp. Nora dove into the back seat, her hair swaying, her fingers clutching the pepper spray still warm from the fight. "They're tailing us," Theo growled, his head craning to check the rear view. A black SUV loomed, its headlights slicing the dark. Nora's heart lurched, Celeste's voice. "Finish her!" A knife in her gut. "Gideon's office," she snapped, her voice a whip. "The contract's there." Theo's hand slashed the air, cutting her off. "Too dangerous," he hissed. "They're closing in." Nora's teeth ground harder, her resolve iron. "I'm not running," she shot back, her hair flicking as she leaned forward. Lila floored the gas, tires squealing, weaving through Camden's narrow streets. Nora's fingers trembled, pulling the USB from her pocket. The video of Gideon's poisoning, gloved hands, syringe in her lemon water, wasn't enough. The contract would seal their fate. Her mind flashed to Elise's sick kid, Mara's hopeful eyes. Her fight was for them, for every town Vidacor's greed choked. They ditched the car behind a warehouse, the SUV's headlights fading. Nora led the way, her steps sharp, her hair catching the moonlight. Gideon's office loomed, its glass doors locked. Theo jimmied the lock, his movements swift, his voice low. 5 minutes, he barked, cutting off Nora's protest. Inside, the office was a fortress of secrets, Gideon's desk a monolith. Nora knelt, her fingers probing for the locked drawer she'd seen before. Her pulse spiked. The receipt, Celeste, 10K deposit, burning in her mind. The drawer clicked open, revealing a folder and a flash drive. Her breath caught, her hands steady despite the bruises on her knuckles. She flipped the folder open, her eyes scanning a contract. Gideon and Celeste's signatures, terms to declare Nora incompetent, transferring her herb formula to Vidacor for millions. Her chest burned, fury surging. "They planned this," she snarled, her voice a blade. Lila's eyes widened, snatching the contract. "This is it," she hissed, cutting Nora off. Theo plugged the flash drive into his laptop, his fingers flying. A new video loaded. Celeste and Gideon in a boardroom, her voice cold. "Her formula's worth billions. Poison her slow and it's ours." Nora's nails dug deeper, blood welling as rage consumed her. Headlights flashed outside. the SUV pulling up. "They're here," Theo growled, his hands slashing to silence her. Nora's heart thundered, her scientist's mind plotting. She grabbed the folder and flash drive, her hair swaying as she stood. "We're not done," she snapped, her voice ice. Lila shoved the contract into her bag, her eyes fierce. "Run," she barked, cutting off Nora's next move. They bolted for the back exit, footsteps pounding behind them. Nora's fingers clutched the flash drive, its weight a vow. She'd expose them, no matter the cost. The SUV's engine roared, a shadow closing in, a spark ready to ignite her final stand. "You're a nobody, Nora, and nobodies don't win." Celeste Merrill's voice was a venomous slash as she seized the microphone at Camden's herbal conference, her eyes glinting like knives. Nora, 35, her black hair with curled ends swaying, stood at the stage's edge. Her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. Her pulse thundered. Each beat a war drum as she gripped the flash drive and contract from Gideon's office. Proof of Vitacor's plot to steal her herb formula and poison her with lemon water. Her hazel eyes blazed, locked on Celeste, whose smug smile taunted her. Nora's nails dug into her palms, blood prickling, fury surging. The crowd, herbalists, locals, Elise, and Mara, watched, oblivious to the battle unfolding. Nora stepped forward, her hair flicking, her voice a whip. "Nobody! I'm your reckoning!" Celeste laughed, sharp and cold, her hands slashing the air to cut Nora off. "You're delusional," she hissed, her blazer gleaming under the stage lights. "Sit down or you're finished." Nora's chest burned, her scientist's mind razor-sharp. She signaled Lila, hidden near a projector, her eyes fierce. Theo in the crowd nodded, his hawk-like gaze locked on Celeste's thugs at the back. Nora snatched the microphone, her hair swaying, her words ice. "You poisoned me, Celeste. You and Gideon." The crowd gasped, their murmurs a wave. Celeste's smile faltered, her hand waving to silence Nora. "Lies," she barked, cutting her off. But Lila hit a button, and the screen flared to life, playing the video from the flash drive. Gideon's gloved hands, a syringe dripping into Nora's lemon water, filled the room. Celeste's voice followed, cold and precise. "Her formula's worth billions. Poison her slowly." Gasps erupted, eyes darting to Celeste, her face paling. Nora's teeth ground harder, pain anchoring her. "You buried cures for profit," she snarled, holding up the contract, its signatures damning. "My herbs save lives. You stole them." Celeste lunged, her voice a snarl. "That's fake," she shouted, cutting Nora off, her hand reaching for the microphone. Nora yanked it back, her hair whipping across her face. "It's real," she growled, her words a blade. Lila stepped forward, holding the vial's lab report, her voice sharp. "Neurotoxin in her blood." The crowd roared, their shock turning to outrage. Theo blocked a thug's advance, his fist curled, his eyes blazing. Nora's heart thundered, her resolve iron. She faced the crowd, her voice clear, cutting. "Vitacor crushed communities. I'm stopping them." Celeste's eyes widened, her composure shattering. "You'll pay," she hissed, but Nora's gaze pinned her, unwavering. "You're done," Nora said, her voice a hammer smashing Celeste's facade. The crowd surged, their voices rising, demanding justice. Gideon in the front row froze, his smirk gone, his eyes darting to the exit. Nora's fingers clutched the flash drive, its weight a vow fulfilled. Police sirens wailed outside, their lights flashing through the hall's windows. Nora's lips curled, a silent snarl. She'd torn their lies apart, but the fight wasn't over. The screen looped the video, a relentless truth, a spark whispering of the justice still to come. "You thought you could erase me, Celeste, but I'm your end." Nora's voice was a cold blade, slicing through the Camden courtroom's tense air. Her black hair with curled ends gleamed, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. Her hazel eyes burned, locked on Celeste Merrill, Vitacor's CEO, whose tailored blazer couldn't hide her paling face. Nora's pulse thundered, each beat a war drum. The flash drive, contract, and lab report, her arsenal from the conference, had exposed Gideon's poisoning and Vitacor's greed. Her nails dug into her palms, blood prickling, fury cooling into triumph. Celeste stood in the dock, her smirk gone, her eyes darting. This is a lie, she snarled, her hand slashing the air to cut Nora off. Nora stepped forward, her hair flicking, her voice a whip. Your lies are done. The judge's gavel cracked, a gunshot silencing Celeste. Guilty, he barked, his voice iron. Conspiracy, attempted poisoning. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elise, Mara, locals who'd seen Nora's herbs heal. Gideon, cuffed beside Celeste, lunged, his voice a desperate hiss. Nora, you'll regret this. A bailiff grabbed him, his cuffs gleaming, but Nora's gaze held steady, her words ice. It's over, Gideon. The judge continued, his voice stern. Vitacor's under investigation. Nora Whitaker's research is restored. Nora's chest surged, her scientist's mind blazing. Her shop, her formula, hers again. Celeste's head bowed, her empire crumbling, while Gideon's eyes burned with defiance. Nora's teeth ground, pain anchoring her. Every knot was tied. The video of Gideon's syringe, the contract signatures, the neurotoxin in her blood. The crowd murmured, their awe replacing pity. Nora's fingers brushed the recorder in her pocket, its weight a vow fulfilled. She turned, her hair swaying, facing Elise and Mara in the gallery. Their nods were fuel, their eyes bright with hope. Justice was hers, but the fight wasn't done. Outside, sirens wailed, Vitacor's secret spilling. Nora's resolve was iron, her heart a furnace. A letter in her pocket, from a town saved by her herbs, burned with promise, a spark whispering of the legacy she'd build. You broke my trust, Gideon, but you won't break my purpose. Nora's voice was a cold blade, slicing through the courtroom's fading murmurs as she faced Gideon, his cuffs gleaming under harsh lights. Her black hair with curled ends swayed, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. Her hazel eyes burned, locked on her husband, his tailored suit now a crumpled mask of defeat. Her pulse thundered, each beat a war drum forging her resolve. The courtroom victory, Celeste and Gideon guilty, her herbal formula restored, fueled her fire. Her nails dug into her palms, blood prickling, her scientist mind blazing with purpose. The crowd, Elise, Mara, Camden locals, watched, their awe a spark in her chest. Gideon leaned forward, his voice a raw hiss. I was wrong, Nora, he said, cutting her off before she could speak. Let me fix it. His eyes, once cold, flickered with desperation, his hands trembling in cuffs. Nora's teeth ground harder, pain anchoring her. Fix it. He'd poisoned her lemon water, plotted with Vitacor to steal her research, to bury her cure for profit. Her hair flicked as she stepped closer, her words ice. Your fixes are poison, she snapped, her voice a whip. The judge's gavel hovered, a bailiff's hand slashing to silence Gideon's retort. Enough, the judge barked, his voice iron. Gideon's lawyer slid a document across the table, his voice low. His firm's profits, millions, for your work. Nora's breath caught, her fingers tightening on the recorder in her pocket, still warm from exposing his lies. The crowd gasped, Elise's eyes widening, Mara's notebook clutched tight. Nora's chest surged, not with forgiveness, but with possibility. She wouldn't take his guilt-tainted money for herself. She'd use it for them, for towns choking on illness Vitacor ignored. I accept, she said, her voice clear, cutting, but not for you. Gideon's face twisted, his hands slamming the dock, cut off by the bailiff's grip. You'll never escape me, he hissed, but Nora's gaze held steady, her resolve iron. She turned, her hair swaying, facing the crowd. This is for you, she declared, her words a vow, her eyes locking on Elise's sick son, Mara's hopeful face. She'd launched the Whitaker Herbal Initiative, using Gideon's millions to distribute her pain-curing herbs to communities across Maine. Her fingers brushed the letter in her pocket, from a town saved by her tease, its words a spark. She'd build something Gideon couldn't touch. Lila, her dermatologist ally, stepped forward, her hand gripping Nora's arm, fierce. You're changing lives, she said, cutting off Nora's doubt. Theo, the investigator, nodded from the back, his hawk-like eyes softening. Nora strode from the courtroom, her steps sharp, her hair catching the light. Outside, she announced the initiative at a community center, her voice steady, slicing through the crowd's murmurs. "No one will be denied healing," she said, her eyes on Mara, who clutched her notebook, sketching herb blends. Elise's son, breathing easier, clung to his mother. Nora's heart swelled, fury cooling into purpose. Gideon's money would fund clinics, her research saving thousands. But his shadow lingered, his hiss threat. "You'll never escape me." Her teeth ground, pain fueling her. She'd protect her legacy, her people. A new letter arrived from a rural town, begging for her herbs. Its words burned in her hand, a promise of lives she'd save, a spark whispering of the empire she'd build. "You tried to silence me, Gideon, but my voice is louder now." Nora's words cut like a blade through the hum of her expanded Camden herbal shop, her black hair with curled ends swaying as she faced a crowd of locals. Her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached, pain anchoring her triumph. Her hazel eyes blazed, her pulse steady, each beat a drum of purpose. The courtroom victory, Celeste and Gideon guilty, her formula restored, had set her free. Gideon's millions, redirected to her Whitaker Herbal Initiative, fueled her mission to heal communities. Her nails dug into her palms, blood prickling, her scientist's mind alight with visions of hope. The letter from a saved town, tucked in her pocket, burned with promise. Elise, the single mom, stepped forward, her son clinging to her, his breathing clear thanks to Nora's herbs. "You saved us," she said, her voice trembling, cutting off Nora's humility. Nora's chest surged, pride swallowing the sting of Gideon's betrayal. His lemon water, his gloves, his lies. Her hair flicked as she knelt, handing Elise a jar of pain-relieving tea. "This is for you," she said, her voice a vow, her eyes locking on Mara, the young herbalist clutching a sketchbook of blends. Mara's nod was fierce, her pencil moving, mirroring Nora's younger self before Gideon's poison dulled her fire. "Keep creating," Nora told her, her words sharp, "and never let anyone dim your spark." Mara's eyes brimmed, her hands steady. Nora stood, her hair swaying, facing the crowd, locals, new apprentices, Lila and Theo at her side. Lila, her dermatologist ally, gripped her arm, her voice a whip. "You're rewriting their futures," she said, cutting off Nora's doubt. Theo's hawk-like eyes softened, his nod curt. "Vitacor's collapsing," he growled, his phone buzzing with news of their assets seized. Nora's heart thundered, her resolve iron. She'd turned Gideon's greed into hope, his millions funding clinics across Maine. Her shop, once a battleground, was now a beacon, its shelves lined with jars that saved lives. A young apprentice, Livia, approached, her hands nervous around a new herb blend. "Will this work?" she asked, her voice timid but eager. Nora's gaze softened, seeing her own hunger in Livia's eyes. "Test it," she said, her voice clear, guiding Livia's hands. "Your ideas matter." Livia's nod was aflame, and Nora's chest tightened, her scientist's mind plotting a legacy. She moved to a board, pinning a new letter from a rural town, their water clean, their pain eased, thanks to her initiative. "This is why we fight," she said, her voice a blade slicing through doubt, addressing her team, her new family. Their cheers erupted, hands clapping, faces alight. Gideon's hissed threat, "You'll never escape me," lingered, a faint shadow. Nora's teeth ground, pain fueling her. She'd burned her old notebook, its pages of suspicions now ashes, replaced by this shop, this purpose. Her fingers brushed the letter, its words a spark. She thought of Celeste's crumbling empire, Gideon's cuffs, their lies exposed by her USB, recorder, and vial. Her hair swayed as she signed a contract to send herbs to 5 more towns, her hands steady, her precision guiding each stroke. "For them," she said, her eyes on Mara, whose sketchbook held dreams of healing. Leela burst through the door, her eyes fierce, holding a photo of a clinic opening in a polluted town. "You did this," she said, thrusting it into Nora's hands, her grip a lifeline. Nora's throat tightened, her fingers tracing the photo's edges. She pinned it beside the letter, her team's energy pulsing around her. "This is hope," she said, her voice low, addressing Livia, Mara, and Elise. Their nods were fuel, their hands moving with purpose. blending herbs for towns in need. Gideon's shadow faded, his voice powerless against her strength. Nora stepped outside, her hair catching the Camden dusk, her hands clutching a jar of her pain-curing blend. The skyline glowed, her shop's light spilling onto the street. She wasn't the woman who'd choked on poisoned lemon water, but Nora Whitaker, architect of a future where no one was silenced. Her team followed, their laughter a pulse, Mara's sketchbook open, Livia's blend brewing. The jar in her hand gleamed, a quiet vow. "Your voice is your strength," she whispered, her words tying her journey. Gideon's betrayal, Lila's loyalty, Mara's dreams, into a legacy of hope. The street buzzed, her shop a beacon, whispering of lives she'd touch, of a world she'd heal. Nora's fight proves your voice is your strength. Never let betrayal silence it. From poisoned lemon water to a blazing legacy, she turned pain into hope, saving communities with her herbs. Her defiance, sparked by a gloved hand, shattered Gideon's lies and Vitacor's greed. What fire did Nora's battle ignite in you? A memory of standing tall, a story of your own resilience? Drop it in the comments. Share where you're watching, what time it is, and how her triumph hit you. Your voice matters, just like hers. Thanks for joining us through every pulse-pounding twist of this tale. Your support fuels our stories. Stay tuned for more battles of truth and courage. We'll see you in the next chapter. Keep forging your own legacy.